Hey guys, it's Nathan from the Kentucky Cycling YouTube channel. We are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We are getting ready to ride both the Gap, which is the Great Allegheny Passage, and the C&O Canal towpath, which is the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal towpath, all the way from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C. We're approaching this primarily as a bikepacking trip, so we are going to average in the neighborhood of about 60 miles a day and camp along the way. With one exception, we are going to stop at an Airbnb at the end of day 4 in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and enjoy a night in a bed and showers and do some laundry, all those kind of creature comforts. This is our third time riding the Gap and our second time riding the C&O, but we've never approached it as one continuous ride before. We are really much looking forward to doing this. I'm actually riding this with my original riding partners on the Gap. So we rode the Gap for the first time back in 2019, and we rode the C&O the following year in 2020. So I will include a link to both of those videos in the YouTube description if you want to check those out. In those videos, I focus much more on the history and infrastructure of the trail, so you may want to look at that. The first year we actually did this as a light credit card ride, so if you're interested in approaching it that way, it might be particularly useful to you. And then we also did a video bikepacking just the Gap from Cumberland up to Pittsburgh. We drove up from Kentucky last night, arrived into Pittsburgh, where we got to go downtown on a Saturday night when there was a Pittsburgh Pirates game going on and enjoy lots of scenery. We are here at Point State Park, which is the northern terminus of the Gap Trail. Right behind me here is the Ohio River. We are standing at the confluence of two rivers, which is the Monongahela and the Allegheny River, which form the Ohio River directly behind me. So we're gonna ride out of the Steel Valley now. Really looking forward to turning pedals in what is gonna be a beautiful fall day.
One thing that makes navigation easy on both the Gap and the C&O is that there are physical mile markers on the trails, counting down starting in Pittsburgh to mile marker 0 for the Gap in Cumberland, and again from Cumberland down to mile marker 0 on the C&O in DC. The Gap site does an especially good job of breaking down both points of interest as well as resources along the way. And I notice on this trip that they've added a number of new signs on the trail to help with wayfinding, even more, which is great to see. Having been fortunate enough to have ridden these trails multiple times now, I've definitely developed a handful of favorite sections that I'll highlight in this video. First of my favorites is riding through the Steel Valley out of Pittsburgh. The Gap Trail offers more overall variety in the landscape than the C&O, and making the transition out of this former center of the U.S. steel industry into the rural Pennsylvania countryside is dramatic and offers no shortage of interesting things to view along the way.
First taste of gravel. Hey guys. Hey buddy.
We spent the first night on the trail in Connellsville and stayed at the free hiker-biker campsite on the north end of town, located next to the Connellsville Gateway Arch, where we were able to get spots in the Adirondack shelters. There is both potable water and a pit toilet here, and the site is positioned at the rear of a shopping center with a grocery store, which allowed for some resupply. We got a tasty dinner at the River's Edge restaurant, which was only a half-mile down the trail, next door to the Comfort Inn, which, at the time of this video, offers cyclists the opportunity to get a shower with towel and toiletries for $10, which is really nice. On day 2, we'd ride through my favorite section of the Gap Trail, which lies between Connellsville and Confluence as it passes through sections of the Ohio State Forest along the Youghiogheny River. The beauty and serenity of this section are both rejuvenating and awe-inspiring.
Coming up on Markleton, for where they understand there to be a trail closure, and there it is. So there's been a landslide which has closed a 7-mile section of trail between Markleton and Rockwood, and officially there is no
supported Detour. That being said, so I say that they do have bike companies and shuttle services who are basically running shuttle services, and I believe that's for $20 a person. We are going to take the more adventuresome route. There actually is a road here, but it is pretty steep, and it's averaging about a 10% grade for about a mile, and basically directly parallels the gap. So we're gonna give it a try, and I'll say, if you like to do this, obviously do it at your own risk. We've been gradually climbing all day, so good chance we're gonna be walking a big chunk of this, but it's only about a mile before it levels out at the top. Steep descent back down here to creek level, and there'll be about this great hill on the other side. View up here is pretty spectacular.
Continue straight. Turn left.
When planning to ride both the Gap and the C&O, one thing you'll need to take in consideration is the overall elevation profile. Generally speaking, when planning rides, I really like to front load the climbing if I can, and enjoy the payoff of the downhill on the backside of the ride. When you look at the elevation chart for the Gap and the C&O, you'll see that the trail climbs gradually uphill from Pittsburgh all the way up to the Eastern Continental Divide, which we'd cross over just 8 miles outside of Frostburg, which would be our stop for the night. Then the overall elevation is pretty much downhill all the way to DC. And for us, Pittsburgh is closer and cheaper to park in than DC, so it actually made better sense for us to start a ride in Pittsburgh for multiple reasons.
Crossing the Mason-Dixon line. Welcome to Maryland.
Our first rain of the trip fell on and off throughout the night, picked up again in the morning, and continued steadily until about 9 a.m. So we hunkered down for a bit and waited it out before continuing our downhill roll into Cumberland, where we'd continue to enjoy the payoff of all the climbing from the day before.
We're at Canal Place in Cumberland, which is mile marker 0 for the Gap and about 184.5 of the C&O.
The C&O Canal towpath has been undergoing a multi-year resurfacing project to improve safety, drainage, and rideability, and we got our first taste of riding on the new surface coming out of Cumberland. Crews are removing ruts and roots, regrading for better water flow, and laying a durable crushed stone dust surface similar to the Gap Trail. Throughout the course of this ride, we'd go back and forth between resurfaced and older sections, which provides for a much more unified experience when through riding both trails. I know some of you out there may lament the loss of the ruggedness of the old trail, but I have to confess that I really enjoyed riding along the new sections. Generally speaking, the resurfaced sections ride faster than the older ones, are smoother, and drain much better. And in my opinion, none of this takes away from the feeling of remoteness that is the dominant feature of the C&O. However, both your bike and your backside will likely appreciate the new riding surface. This section of the C&O, after you leave Cumberland and approach Pawpaw, West Virginia, is one of my favorites as it just feels so remote. And riding along the long abandoned sections of the canal with many areas where the forest and wildlife have taken over all this old infrastructure just feels like you've entered a land which civilization has moved on and forgotten. Opportunities for food and resupply are fewer and further between than on the Gap, and touring here makes you appreciate the value of a gas station deli. We take the connector trail into Pawpaw where we visit the Liberty gas station to not only get lunch, but also pick up sandwiches to take with us for dinner and wait out a heavier storm before getting back on the trail.
Pawpaw Tunnel. Definitely unimproved trail still in this section.
My favorite camping night of the trail was the night we'd spend at the end of day 3 at the Indigo Neck campsite, less than 2 miles away from Little Orleans, Maryland, and right beside Lock 57. Not only were we by ourselves out here, we got to wade, freshen up, and take a dip in the Potomac and enjoy a quiet night under a star-filled sky free of light pollution. Most of the sites also have pumps of well water. When we were here 5 years ago, I believe there were signs saying that the water was treated with iodine, but now the signage all says the water is not potable and that you'll need to either treat the water chemically or filter it if you want to drink it.
We're only a couple miles down the road from our campsite and we've gone back to Old Trail, but what's interesting to note is that right above us here is the Western Maryland Rail Trail, which is paved. So if you were averse to riding on the old surface in this section, you could totally parallel it with some paved rail trail.
Path.
All right, so just
Detour.
after the bridge. So we'll see where this goes.
They've got us recharging.
We're gonna ride on the Western Maryland Road Trail. All right, first time on the Western Maryland Rail Trail. So they're sending us this way for a little bit. Towpath is down below us there.
Okay, so this is the towpath, and right down here they've got blocked off a bridge, and you can see it's got a pretty good sag to it. So we're kind of guessing that it's more about the bridge issue than it is about the resurfacing project that's going on, that we're being diverted over here. But I will say it's really nice to have this paved resource right next to the C&O. But we look forward to rejoining you soon, buddy.
All right, so just after the bridge,
They've got us recharging via a lock.
Resurfaced trail starts again in Hancock. On the trail. As you're leaving Williamsport, there's a fully restored lock here, so you can really get a sense of how things used to work in the old days. Lock 44. Okay, so we are in the area of locks 41 and 42, what is known as Big Slackwater. And I'm just going to read from the placard here. It says, boat captains heading downstream to a dramatic junction here along the Big Slackwater section of the canal. At lock 42, which is where I'm standing, boats were lowered 9 feet, and then just ahead at lock 41, lowered to the next level of the river. Lock 41 and the canal ended, and the boats entered the river for a 3-mile trip along the cliff-lined shores of the Potomac. It is raining today, but this is generally one of my very favorite sections of the towpath. So we'll see. Hi. So we'll see how what it looks like as we move along the Potomac. Still really pretty even in the rain. To Shepherdstown.
We were really impressed by Shepherdstown during our previous trip on the C&O and thought this would be a cool place to spend the night and be able to explore a bit more. And indeed it was. After getting showers and starting some laundry at our Airbnb, we had a super yummy meal at Maria's Taqueria before exploring around German Street a little more and returning to the creature comforts of couches, television, and comfy beds for the evening.
So it's always good to check the website. So we knew about this, but there is a closure here on the bridge that goes over to Harper's Ferry, and you can see the signage up here in the corner for Harper's Ferry. I would highly recommend, if you've never been to Harper's Ferry, to go over. While the construction is going on, they are running a shuttle, basically from somewhere close to this area to over into Harper's Ferry. It's a great place to take in some beautiful scenery, some history, wander around the town. We are trying to time our ride to miss some storms today, so we're gonna pedal on from here, but wanted to speak to the stair closure while that restoration is going on. So just south of Harper's Ferry, the C&O Canal towpath shares space with the Appalachian Trail. Cool little fun fact. Coming into Brunswick, which is a cool little town. I stayed here 5 years ago in the Brunswick Family Campground. So here's the Brunswick Family Campground where we stayed. And I'll just say that this is a pretty cool place. It's got showers, it's got a bike washing station. Two big winners for us. The only downside is that you need to maybe bring some earplugs because we're right by a rail yard here.
Our last night on the trail, we stayed at the hiker-biker campground at Swain's Lock, which is the last hiker-biker site on the trail before you reach the end in DC. Swain's Lock is the only hiker-biker spot that has a parking lot, which gets a lot of use from day users. So even though there are 5 sites here, and the campground is only supposed to be used by hikers and bikers, I was a little worried about getting a spot. I'm sure it helped that we were here on a weeknight, but as it turned out, we were the only overnight campers on the night we were here. Another perk of this location is that it's on municipal water, so no need to treat or filter water here. In my opinion, no trip along the C&O Canal would be complete without stopping off to take in the majesty of Great Falls, where the Potomac River drops 76 feet in less than a mile through a gorge that narrows from 1,000 feet wide to less than 100 feet through Mather Gorge. It is one of the steepest and most dramatic rapids of any eastern river. Getting an early start and having camped less than 3 miles up the trail allowed us to be the only ones at the Great Falls Overlook when we were there, which was pretty awesome.
At this point, we're less than 10 miles out from mile marker 0, and I was taken aback and by this. You know, it continues to feel, we're obviously in the greater DC area here, it continues to feel very isolated on the trail, but here we're passing by Lock 14, all this old infrastructure, and we've got highway or 495 going right over top of the old C&O Canal towpath down here. And I bet those folks, a lot of them just have no clue that this is down here, which is pretty wild, the old and the new. And this is Lock 13. C&O Canal towpath detour. So right beside us is the Capitol Crescent Trail, which is paved, and you can see there's quite a bit of standing water in this section on the C&O. So if you wanted a smoother ride into DC, you could get it for being a little purist right here by staying on the C&O. Detour. So we got tired of following the signs up and down stairs and stuff, but we know that mile marker 0 is over to our right here, and so we're just came down here on this park, hopped in this bike lane, and we're heading that way.
Another reason that we elected to camp closer into DC was to allow for some time to explore around the National Mall and surrounding monuments after making our way to mile marker 0, especially given the fact that you can get there by bike trail and it's less than 2 miles away.
As always, we hope you found this content useful. If you did, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks.